Welcome to the Discourse Analyzer AI Toolkit, where articles come alive. You're listening to the audio version of our article. For the full text and an interactive experience, check out the link in the description below. Interact with any selection using our AI assistant to enhance your understanding. Let's explore.
Ferdinand de Saussure and Discourse Analysis. Ferdinand de Saussure, a Swiss linguist, is often considered the father of modern linguistics. His work laid the foundational concepts for many areas of linguistic study, including semiotics and structuralism, which indirectly influenced the development of discourse analysis. However, Saussure's ideas themselves are not directly applied in discourse analysis as it is practiced today. Instead, his theories provided the groundwork for later thinkers who have had a more direct impact on discourse analysis. 1. Saussure's key concepts and their influence. Langue and parole. Saussure made a distinction between langue, the structured system of language, and parole, the actual use of language in speech. Langue refers to the abstract system of rules and conventions shared by a speech community, while parole refers to individual instances of speech and language use. Relevance to discourse analysis. Saussure's distinction between langue and parole is not directly used in discourse analysis. However, the idea that language functions as a system, langue, provides a conceptual backdrop for understanding how specific instances of language use, parole, can be analyzed within broader social and cultural contexts. Modern discourse analysis focuses more on the specific uses of language in context, similar to parole, rather than on the abstract system of language, langue. The detailed study of langue belongs more to structural linguistics, which is not the main concern of discourse analysis. The sign, signifier and signified. Saussure introduced the concept of the linguistic sign, consisting of the signifier, the form of the word or sound, and the signified, the concept or meaning associated with it. He emphasized that the relationship between the signifier and the signified is arbitrary and culturally determined. Relevance to discourse analysis. The concept of the sign is foundational for understanding how meaning is constructed in language, a key concern in discourse analysis. However, discourse analysis typically uses these ideas through the lens of later developments in semiotics and post-structuralism, rather than directly applying Saussure's original framework. Saussure's specific focus on the structure of the sign is more relevant to semiotics and structural linguistics. Discourse analysis tends to be more concerned with how these signs function in real-world contexts, influenced by social, political, and cultural factors. Structuralism. Saussure's ideas gave rise to structuralism, a theoretical approach that views language and culture as systems of interrelated elements. Structuralism seeks to understand the underlying structures that govern language and cultural practices. Relevance to discourse analysis. Structuralism influenced the early development of discourse analysis by providing tools for examining how meaning is structured in language. However, discourse analysis has since evolved beyond the rigid frameworks of structuralism, incorporating more dynamic approaches that account for power, context, and change. Discourse analysis today often critiques the limitations of structuralism, particularly its tendency to view language as a closed system detached from social realities. Instead, discourse analysis emphasizes the fluidity and variability of meaning in different contexts. Point 2. Saussure's influence on later theories relevant to discourse analysis. While Saussure's work itself is not directly applied in discourse analysis, his ideas have significantly influenced later thinkers who are central to the field. Post-structuralism. Thinkers like Michel Foucault, Jacques Derrida, and Roland Barthes built upon and critiqued Saussure's ideas, particularly his notions of structure and the arbitrariness of the sign. These scholars introduced concepts like power, knowledge, deconstruction, and the death of the author, which are directly relevant to discourse analysis. Semiotics. Saussure's ideas laid the groundwork for semiotics, which is often used in discourse analysis to explore how signs and symbols function in communication. However, contemporary discourse analysts typically engage with semiotics through the work of later theorists who have expanded on Saussure's ideas. Conclusion. Ferdinand de Saussure's contributions to linguistics are foundational but are not directly applied in modern discourse analysis. His concepts of langue and parole, the linguistic sign, and structuralism provided the theoretical basis for understanding language as a structured system of meaning. However, these ideas are more relevant to the broader field of linguistics and semiotics than to discourse analysis itself. In discourse analysis, Saussure's relevance is more indirect, serving as a precursor to the work of later theorists who have more directly influenced the field. Today, discourse analysis focuses on how language functions in specific contexts to construct social realities, power relations, and identities, an approach that has evolved beyond the structuralist framework Saussure originally proposed. Frequently asked questions: who is Ferdinand de Saussure, and why is he important to linguistics? Ferdinand de Saussure was a Swiss linguist whose work laid the foundations for modern linguistics. He is considered the father of structuralism and semiotics, fields that analyze the structures underlying language and signs. Although his work does not directly apply to discourse analysis, it has significantly influenced the development of later theories that are central to the field. What are langue and parole, and how do they relate to discourse analysis? Saussure distinguished between langue, the abstract, structured system of language, and parole, the actual use of language in speech. While langue refers to the collective rules and conventions shared by a community, parole refers to individual instances of language use. In discourse analysis, the focus is more on parole, the specific ways language is used in context, rather than on langue. This distinction, while foundational, is not directly applied in modern discourse analysis, which emphasizes the practical use of language in social contexts. How does Saussure's concept of the linguistic sign, signifier and signified, influence discourse analysis? Saussure's concept of the linguistic sign, comprising the signifier, the form of a word or sound, and the signified, the associated concept or meaning, is foundational for understanding how meaning is constructed in language. However, in discourse analysis, these ideas are usually explored through the lens of later developments in semiotics and post-structuralism, rather than directly applying Saussure's original framework. Discourse analysis is more concerned with how signs function in real-world contexts, influenced by social, political, and cultural factors. What is structuralism, and how did it emerge from Saussure's ideas? Structuralism is a theoretical approach that views language and culture as systems of interrelated elements, emphasizing the underlying structures that govern them. Structuralism emerged from Saussure's ideas about language as a system of signs. While structuralism influenced the early development of discourse analysis by providing tools for examining how meaning is structured, discourse analysis has since evolved beyond structuralism, incorporating more dynamic approaches that account for power, context, and social change. How have Saussure's ideas influenced later theories relevant to discourse analysis? Saussure's ideas have significantly influenced later thinkers in post-structuralism and semiotics, who are central to discourse analysis. For example, Michel Foucault expanded on Saussure's ideas to explore how discourse shapes power relations and knowledge. Jacques Derrida critiqued Saussure's concept of fixed meanings in language, leading to deconstruction, which is crucial in analyzing how texts create meaning. Roland Barthes applied Saussure's semiotics to culture and media, exploring how signs in texts and images create meaning, an approach frequently used in discourse analysis. Why is Saussure's work more relevant to semiotics and structural linguistics than to discourse analysis? Saussure's work is more relevant to semiotics and structural linguistics because it focuses on understanding language as an abstract system, langue, and the relationship between signs, signifier and signified. These areas are concerned with the structures and rules underlying language, rather than the use of language in specific social contexts. Discourse analysis, on the other hand, focuses on how language is used in practice to construct social realities, power relations, and identities, which requires moving beyond the structuralist approach Saussure proposed. How does discourse analysis differ from the structuralist framework introduced by Saussure? Discourse analysis differs from the structuralist framework in that it emphasizes the fluidity and variability of meaning in different contexts, whereas structuralism views language as a closed, structured system. Discourse analysis considers how language functions in specific social, political, and cultural contexts, how it constructs identities, and how it reflects and shapes power dynamics. It also critiques the idea that meanings in language are fixed or stable, highlighting instead the dynamic and contested nature of discourse. What role does the concept of power, knowledge, play in discourse analysis, and how does it relate to Saussure's ideas? The concept of power, knowledge, introduced by Michel Foucault, emphasizes that power is exercised through the production and control of knowledge, which is closely linked to discourse. While this concept builds on Saussure's idea that language structures meaning, it goes further by exploring how discourses shape and are shaped by power relations. In discourse analysis, power, knowledge, is used to understand how certain discourses dominate others and how language is used to maintain or challenge power structures. How does Saussure's concept of the arbitrary nature of the sign influence modern discourse analysis? Saussure's concept that the relationship between the signifier and the signified is arbitrary and culturally determined laid the groundwork for understanding how meaning is constructed in language. In discourse analysis, this idea is expanded to explore how different cultures and contexts produce different meanings from the same signs and how these meanings can be contested or changed. This concept is crucial for analyzing how language constructs social realities and how these realities can vary across different discourses. In what ways has discourse analysis evolved beyond Saussure's structuralist approach? Discourse analysis has evolved beyond Saussure's structuralist approach by focusing on the dynamic, context-dependent nature of language use. While structuralism views language as a stable system, discourse analysis considers how meaning is constructed and contested in specific social, political, and cultural contexts. It also incorporates insights from post-structuralism, which challenges the idea of fixed meanings in language and emphasizes the role of power and ideology in shaping discourse.